The Tuesday, August 15th, 2017 meeting of the Duncannon Borough Council. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest in the happenings in your community. I'd like to welcome everyone. Please stand for a moment of silence, followed by a pledge of allegiance. Mr. Wolfersberger, would you please lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
Yes, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'd like to welcome the Secretary for a roll call.
Mr. Crothermel.
Here.
Mr. Epley.
Present.
Mr. Adams.
Here.
Mr. Nace.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Kirkhoff.
Here.
Ms. Young.
Here.
Mayor Capuana.
Here.
Solicitor Dissinger.
Here.
Engineer Rogalski.
Here. Very good. Thank you. Just a reminder for anyone that may have electronic devices, phones or pagers, etc., please silence those or place them on vibrate for the duration of the meeting. And turn the lights off.
I'm scared of the door.
Before you, number 5 on the agenda, before you guys, the July 18th draft minutes, our continued meeting from July 18th to July 20th. Are there any corrections to the minutes? I have just one very small clerical item on page 5. The motion made by Ms. Young to allocate about halfway down 2915 in order to order the recommended LEDs. Co-stars is an all caps acronym.
Okay.
It's not a hyphenated word.
Okay.
No big deal there. Is there any wish for action on the minutes?
Motion to accept.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Young and second by Mr. Crossarmel to accept the minutes with the one correction. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 on the agenda, we have public comment. Thank you, Kevin.
Other duties as assigned. Nice job, Hannah.
Now you have to answer.
Sophia, you put your email address right over whether you want to speak or not. Would you like to speak this evening?
No.
Okay, very good. Michael, Jim, and Mike have not indicated either way. And Mr. Grogan?
Yes, I'd like to thank you though for fixing my driveway.
We didn't do it.
The two gentlemen that did, took a whole half hour, they did a terrific job. So it's done, it's taken care of.
Awesome.
Phenomenal.
Would anyone else wish to speak? Very good, thank you. Okay. Move on then to number 7. That was, I think, a holdover from last month.
Yes, that, I apologize. That should have
You
been.
can skip number 7. Number 8, appointments, resignations, correspondence, proposals, and citizen action forms. I do have, I believe you all have copies in your packets of a parade or special events permit request. Request for a boot drive for children's cancer research funding. This was submitted by Robert Wright for an event on September 23rd, 2017. Essentially similar to what they've done in the past and also what the private company does to raise funds for their adopted family. This is for Alex's Lemonade Stand. Any wish for action on the permit?
Motion that we grant the permit and waive the fee.
Second. Motion by Mr. Crotharmel to grant the permit, waive the fee, second by Mr. Adams. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We have a interested party in the sewer authority.
Okay.
Paul Linnick has said he'd like to serve in that capacity. So I will nominate him for that.
We knew he couldn't stay away. What is it? May, June, July, August, only 3 months. Not bad.
Is that a motion to appoint?
As a motion to appoint.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kirkhoff, second by Mr. Williams to appoint Paul Liddick for the open position on the sewer authority, replacing Mr. Finn. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I also received, just this evening, it's not on the agenda, Mr. Wolfersberger handed me a cordial invitation for a private gala reception for supporters, cast, and crew of the Two Strangers motion picture.
Yes, it is.
That's Saturday, August 26th at the Otterbein Church on Newport Road. Free tickets are available. I have the information here. He is asking for reservations or tickets to be reserved before this Saturday, August 19th. Semi-formal attire is encouraged but not required. Thank you. So if anyone needs this information, I'll give this to Chris. So it'll be in the office for the contact information, and
And that extends to the employees over in the, all.
if you could share this with the staff here in the office and the staff over in the maintenance office.
You have to remove your shoes when you go in.
Doesn't say that.
The floors will be nice and clean when you get there.
That's Saturday, August 26th at 2 p.m. This is the movie, if you recall, a portion of which was filmed out at the Goose Pond out along Sherman's Creek. And that was last year, right? Last fall?
Yes, that was, we did the main filming was in September, and then October, I think we were out there filming along the Goose Pond, and it came out. It's pretty awesome.
I'm eager to see it. I don't know that I can attend that date, but I'm eager to see it.
We're looking at having another, there's a lot of people that, no matter what date you pick, somebody can't come. We're looking at maybe having another showing of the movie in the beginning of November or something, maybe for people that weren't able to attend this one and stuff, so
Very good.
it's pretty cool.
Thank you for the invitation. I'll pass that down to Chris in the office.
Me and a big screen.
Actually, Chris, you want to generate an email for everybody, council members, employees, that way everyone has the information, just maybe scan that in. Is there anything else under appointments, resignations, correspondence, proposals, and citizen action points? Move on to the general reports, the borough engineer, Mr. Rakowski.
Mr. President, we are chugging away towards our September 23rd deadline related to the submission of a permit. The bid package will also be ready at right around that same time for the equipment associated with the treatment plant. So at our next meeting, I would anticipate asking council to authorize bidding that package. And we're just going to go ahead and submit the permit, obviously, before that if we get it done. Influent pump replacement, timing was of the essence. Apparently pump number 1 today sprung a leak. We are already in the queue to have Durstein come in and do that replacement here in the next couple of weeks, so we're in good shape with that. Lead and copper, the good news is that of course we have passed our lead and copper testing. The department continues to ask a number of questions related to all kinds of different things, so we're working through that issue. I wouldn't classify that we're in the clear yet, but we continue to work slowly towards that direction. That's the best I got for you at this point.
Is there any reason we wouldn't be?
A month ago, I would have said, no, there's no reason. We clearly met the lead and copper criteria. They are now digging into our other water quality parameter testing that was done. Why, I can't explain it quite yet, but they are really banging on us, is the best way I can put it. So we're going to continue to answer them. We have in the past. We've had the answers so far, so we'll see if that hopefully makes it go away.
I did receive, I passed it on to Chris, which I think has already been addressed, but a notice of violation, non-certified this evening, it was dated July 26th, about well 1.
Yeah.
And that whole process, that was dealt with 60 days ago or so, you know.
Yeah,
was
that's
well
already it's well down.
So I'm not sure why it was dated July 26th or whatever the date was. But
I think we typically get a kind of a heads up call from Christine or email or whatever, so I think by the time that works its way through the process, I think we already had the permit submitted at that point in time. for well
Yeah,
one, so.
okay, I just want to make sure, since it wasn't certified, but it was still a notice violation, that it was addressed, taken care of.
Speaking of well 1, we're continuing, we anticipate having the permit actually back here any day now and talking to their engineer at the department, so that should be, hopefully be rechlorinated and brought back online in the next week or two. Community Development Block Grant, we were successful, or DCD, or I don't know who the agency was, but we got an extension, which was great news. So essentially that pushed us out to August of 2019. Which we believe will be the, how long it's going to take us to get through the SRBC. So we have a pre-application meeting with them scheduled for the 24th, which is coming up, to sit down and talk about exactly what process we're going to go through to do that. We will certainly brief council on what we need to do there, but we kind of revised the schedule. We still, it's a little backwards. You still have to drill the well first, and then do some testing after that. So we will still be, the intent is to still proceed with construction of the improvements in early 2018 to do that. And Chestnut Street, we anticipate, and talking to the contractor, he was definitely going to be starting after Labor Day. He was thinking probably the week after Labor Day, after, so.
There were 2 letters that came from Vicky, certified to our office. I just got them this evening as well.
Yes, that was for a permit,
For the
same
permitting
thing.
For
That's,
Chestnut Street.
it's
and
just
for-
notification, yeah, so you don't really need to do anything with
Oh,
it.
you don't need the document to return?
It would be nice, but nobody really checks it if you do, Sorry.
I passed along to Chris, so you should see a
Okay,
completed document.
excellent.
Get it back.
At least say we have it.
Okay.
And last one's Locust Street retaining wall. Chris asked us to take a look at, there's a retaining wall on the south side, or sorry, the east side of Locust Street. The wall has reached its useful service life, to underestimate that statement. And there's a very large slope at the toe of that. So we had a geotechnical engineer come up and look at it. His initial opinion was that we couldn't really salvage that existing wall and the capacity it's in, so the most reasonable solution is to essentially build a second wall inside of that and then remove the outside wall. But without knowing what's underneath there to be able to even start that process, we would need to do some borings and take a look at that. We estimated that at 10,000. I think it would actually be much less than that, but that would be a fair budget number to be able to start to look at that particular issue if you wish to do so. The wall is not what I would classify in danger of imminent failure. However, there is very little toe restraint on that wall, so the possibility that could occur is definitely real. So I don't think this is something that we want to blow up, freak out about, but we should really try to move forward to address.
I guess my question is, $10,000, is that something that we could budget for spring 18, or should we be moving faster than that?
I really don't believe that it would. I believe it could wait. I wouldn't want to wait very long. I would want to make sure that it's moving forward. So
I know that very wall, Roger, if you recall, came up a couple years ago. Issues there, I think that Mr. Rapp even indicated that's nothing new.
yeah.
Is there any permitting or anything that we need for that? I mean,
To replace it?
yeah,
No,
there's nothing, we don't have to go to PennDOT or anything like that? Okay.
It's on our side.
Okay.
And the road is starting to go down.
Yeah, like all the signs are there. So I mean,
Is another winter, potentially with plowable snow, going to be more likely to let that wall fail?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Is probably the bigger issue the immense water volume that comes down that hill?
There's a combination of that, the road condition, as Roger mentioned, all of those things are playing together to really cause it to start to become a bigger issue. So, what I propose maybe, Craig, in that scenario would be we'd set up some monitoring points. We could watch it, essentially, and if all of a sudden it starts to really move, then we would be able to tell that pretty easily with what we can do there. So,
Is that something that our guys could?
yeah,
Keep
we
an
would
eye
set
on
2
it.
fixed points and give them a tape measure and say, hey, if this gets more than 6 feet, call somebody. So we could do that in the interim. But yeah, I think if we're going to budget for it, I mean, that drilling could be done in January, so I mean, it's not a weather-dependent issue necessarily. So.
Is everyone comfortable? Jeff, have you looked at this at all from your committee?
I mean, I don't think we've talked about it at a meeting so much, because we were waiting for them to really do the work, but, I mean, I've gone by it with that. It's obviously, I mean, we've all seen it.
Yeah. Do we want to tentatively plan to budget that for 2018?
For sure.
Is that a Highway 8 thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because it may,
If it's on Highway 8, how much is in the budget now?
Well, we have the culvert that we're doing this year, the Butcher Shop Road culvert. Do you know, Bob, where we stand with Highway 8?
The cash balance?
weren't we at like 150, I thought?
157. Are there any other items coming forth?
I was gonna say with this, we'd probably look at paving over there on that section.
Yeah, the wall that's the most realistic is either a Gabion wall, which is the baskets of stone, or like MSE wall, which is mechanically stabilized. Either of those will require us to go back into that street to put geogrid in, so we're gonna have a really big hole there. So yeah, Jeff, I think really we can't avoid that.
Yeah, at least paving that.
And
Yeah.
actually, the wall, when we get to that point, that street actually, both Locust and then going up Second needs rebuilt. It's in horrible shape. There's no curbs, so we have stormwater runoff problems there, constant. So that, but, what we're looking at first is for them to do the testing and come up with a plan and determine exactly what the situation is with the wall. So that, is separate from one, then they're gonna have to come up with plans and we'll have to decide in terms of an approach to fixing it.
Is anyone aware of any other pressing, I believe this becomes potentially a safety challenge. Is there anything else pressing streetwise that should be coming out of Highway 8 this year? Because even if we do the culvert this year, we can at least start this engineering production, the geotechnical investigation.
Well, and the culvert is earmarked for the bank financing. That is
Oh, that's right,
intended to pay for the culvert. We had, at the streets committee, the thought was to retain the Highway 8 money for repaving next year.
Okay.
Because we looked at the cost of repaving on Market and also the likelihood of getting it done during this paving season because of
And the other thing we
contractors
talked
being
about
filled
was
up and
if we get bids out in the winter, the contractor, I think Roger mentioned that last month, if we get bids out in the winter, the
Right.
contract's gonna be a little more.
I would rather see this looked at now so that we could potentially, like, to me, this would take precedent over other paving issues. So I'd rather see this looked at now so that if we can get it done, we can get it in the cheaper paving cycle potentially.
I'll move, we allocate up to $10,000 from Highway 8 for the purpose of a geotechnical investigation, Locust Street retaining wall.
Second.
Third.
Can we get a fourth?
Motion, I've made the motion, Mr. Kirkhoff has been the second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Anything from the table for the engineering?
On the Chestnut Street project, you said starting after Labor Day. How long is that gonna take, do you think, that project?
Well, the physical installation of main will not take that long. I mean, 2 weeks-ish, I would say. Now, the whole thing from the day they move into the day it's paved is gonna be much longer.
Is
But
it
I would-
gonna be like done in sections, or will it be like dig it all up, put it all in?
Well, what'll happen, they'll actually put the entire new main in first, before they flip everything over, and then they'll have to come back and actually tie in all the side streets and the service.
So Chestnut will
things
be
like that.
closed most of that.
Yeah, so like the main installation, like I said, that's probably that 2 week period, but then when they're gonna have to jump around, do some night work, stuff like that, so.
The reason I was getting at that is, what are we gonna do about streets like Lincoln and Prospect when that's being done?
Lincoln Street's one way, so something has to
Yeah,
be
like
done.
we're gonna have to do something where we either make it one way going the opposite directions, or some, you know what I mean?
Right, they're both one way.
You guys can park in
Right.
the municipal lot.
Lincoln Street's one way,
One-way prospects too.
Prospect's
Oh,
two way,
I'm thinking, never mind.
and the alley's two way, but
I'm thinking Chestnut farther down is one way, that's what I'm.
yeah, Chestnut when you get to the very end is, but those alleys that are the only access.
Now, since that's a construction zone, do you need action from us to have the contractor sign them one way the opposite direction? I think would be the really.
I don't think
They're gonna
so.
plate it, they can plate the road.
Yeah, but they'll backfill the same day. I mean, they might leave a plate or two in play where at the end of the pipe. So I anticipate it'll be open, overnight and things like that.
Okay.
But you're gonna have, it's still summer, they're gonna be working, 10, 11 hours a day probably. That's typically how those crews work.
If, at minimum, I would think we should make some notification, the contractor should make some notification to those houses that are affected on both.
Yeah, so-
It's, the Lincoln Street's the only one I think that's one way that'll be
I
affected.
think,
Okay.
So it'll be people on,
and Lincoln Street's very tight, even one way. it's very
Yeah.
tight.
I think I'm the only person that has a place to turn around.
yeah, nobody, it's all street parking except for one house, so.
Right.
So
People
what we'll
coming,
do-
are gonna be backing out anyway.
We haven't even had the pre-construction meeting yet with them yet. As soon as we get that scheduled, which will probably be here at the end of the month, we'll start talking and we'll go out and do a little field.
I was just gonna say,
Start.
you can have them,
Yeah,
maybe
we'll look at
Jeff
those
walk
issues.
through it.
Yep.
And just make sure, and Chris.
Yeah,
make
if you
sure-
wanna let me know, I
Okay.
can help. I know
He lives
pretty
there.
much, I'm gonna be the one probably most affected.
Right.
Because I live at the,
Well, too bad.
I live at the one-way
for the
street
team.
and
What are your legs broke?
I only park on Chestnut, so I at least know everybody that will be
Okay.
affected most of it.
So you'll take.
Yeah, so I'll help you with that.
Point man, okay.
And I believe our ordinances do give either the manager or the mayor or both the power to make those kind of temporary road.
Right.
So if I need the mayor, I'll get him to help us with that.
And if people knew, a week or so in advance,
I mean,
those that
I've
don't
already
wanna
been
back
telling,
out-
I've already been telling people,
Those that don't want to back out can park on Cherry Street, because Cherry Street's almost, unless there's a funeral, almost never.
correct.
So that way, because some people just simply won't be comfortable trying to back out.
Some
Right.
people can park in the back of their houses, they just don't.
Yeah, most of the bottom half at least all have.
So at minimum, having some notification for those, especially on the one-way that are affected.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that was all I had to tell you.
Anything else, Mr. Rogowski?
What's his name? Yeah, nope. I'm good.
I just read Kirk off. Okay. Thank you. Move on to Pessy for public works. Mr. Hogan.
Good evening. Does everybody have a copy of the water and wastewater reports for last month?
Yeah, I have two also.
I had to.
We all are well covered with that information.
Great.
I don't know where the second one came from. I got it this morning, it came by email, so I printed
Oh,
it.
I gave everybody that. because I didn't
Kathy
even
got
get
it too, so.
Because I didn't have one.
All right, I'll start on
Paper budget meeting.
I will start with the water first, and I will say 41% water loss, I have not looked into yet. So I will get with Chris and verify to see if he has any high reads on recent waters. I can tell you that the 126, 387 average gallons a day, that is correct. I have already looked at our records and that is accurate, so I gotta look to see where's the 41% water loss.
There was a really high read
Okay.
down on the square that
Okay.
we called, it was, I'm thinking 133,000 gallons, but it might have been 233. It was a lot, so.
And I have not heard from Byron as far as if the fire company used, so I got some work that I need to pursue.
National Night Out.
They use water?
They draft it out of the.
Oh, that's right, I
out of
know
the
where you're getting
creek.
that from, because they do, I don't, did they draft that out of the stream?
Yeah.
Canada, 130,000 gallons.
No, I'm just thinking of.
No, this was like,
Oh, this was a meter read?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot of
On the square.
it wasn't you, right? It was, I called Morrison Solar Systems is where I ended up calling.
Was it 11 north?
It was
11
the
south.
back. It was like a back. Somewhere. They didn't seem very, it had gotten higher last month, it was like 17,000, and then it got really high.
So we don't know if it's
They
even
didn't
repaired.
call me back, I called.
But still, that wouldn't be unaccounted for
It wouldn't be on.
Oh, you're right, it would be
if
accounted
it was
for.
metered.
True.
Any unusual uses of sewer plant?
No, those meters are,
They're on now, they're
They're
online.
they're all
and
online.
that's where I can check with the records from last month to make sure that those look like they've been,
They do. I thought
Okay.
some of them looked high too.
so.
Do we believe we have a leak somewhere?
Kevin, remind me tomorrow and we'll double check the report for the gallons sold.
Okay.
Because it doesn't total, I had to go in and do the total and I was doing it in a hurry and about
Okay.
5 other things because I got the email from Todd this morning.
Right,
Hey, do you have a number for me? And
okay.
so he had gotten behind and
I would say as far as a leak, I'm gonna say no, because I would not have well 4 up here at the standpipe. That is set on a float. When the
Right.
standpipe's satisfied, it shuts off. 4 is shutting off. If we had a leak, that would be running to try to keep after.
Right.
The reservoir is set on set timers, and we're not losing water in the reservoir. We're going in day after day after day, and that level is holding steady.
Awesome.
So if we have a leak, it's small, it's not of this
Right.
40, so there's something.
Chris, when you
that-
verify those numbers, can you let council know?
Sure.
that That's of the concern, that's high
Yeah,
numbers.
so there's something, DEP won't be happy with.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, where's that put us with our permitting?
That seems almost so high that you would think that it's just a clerical error.
I hope.
Yeah, there's no correlation in
How much
production.
lead was in that
So-
41%?
It was all lead. That went out.
That's why we got rid of it.
Sorry. We did get the Omni site, which controls reservoir readings, well powered. That is up and running as of yesterday afternoon. So we, working toward getting things done. As Greg said, we are working with the department with this lead and copper stuff. It seems like the more we give them, the more they're asking, and it just keeps going and going.
In your experience, and maybe you don't have experience with this, but is this typical? What's up?
I don't know. It is this sanitarium, because we deal with agencies throughout the state.
Right, right.
You go through the protocol, you provide them the information, you're good to go, or, no, we'd like to see you do more. We don't get danced around like we're being danced around now.
Greg, I mean, is there anything from your sense that the borough should be doing? Should we be having, I don't want to put Bill on, but should we be having a conversation or a conference call or something?
Not quite yet. I think
Feels like
we are
we're
very
being
close to
coached.
that. If they come back and wholesale tell us that we have not been removed from the lead and copper scenarios, and I think that's when we need to really sit down and talk about it.
And I mean, even,
Situations,
Mark Keller's office, John DeSanto's office,
yeah.
I don't want to pull those guns
Well,
out at this
and-
point, but.
My own personal interactions with some of the other individuals at DEP have been very positive. So, for what we're getting out of certain individuals is weird. I agree with Kevin. I think it's different. At the same time, we tread a little lightly simply because our past record hasn't been the greatest. So,
Absolutely.
So I think.
But I would hope that any logical human being, if they're already down there, could understand that we've made a lot of effort, we spent a lot of money, and this council has been very hell-bent, frankly, on fixing this stuff.
And I think that's, if it gets to the point where we can't go in and sit down and talk to them, all this correspondence occurring via emails, like I said, we've had all the right answers so far, so.
Thank you.
If it becomes to the point where we're gonna go in and sit down with them, and if we can't get something out of that, I think that's certainly when we come back to you and say, hey, this is these are where the issues are at.
Please keep us apprised.
We will do that.
Anything else on water?
Just for the record, DeSanto's office is aware of this issue. I've had a conversation with their rep who comes up
Oh,
and does the
here.
borough.
Right.
Yeah, and, I told her we didn't need them to do anything yet, but I wanted them to be aware so that if something comes up, that she's aware of the situation and what's going on. The troublesome thing is that, when we go back to it, the fact that this is all based on the two tests that were faulty because of those filters
That were obscenely high, they weren't even reasonably high.
and when they were retested, they were undetectable. There was we're not talking about detected within the limits. There was no lead detected when they were tested without the filters. And, so all this money that we're spending on the lead and copper, is money we could be spending on fixing other issues with the water system. It's not like we are saying that we don't have any problems with the water system or anything to improve. We want to do it, but.
But as long as this is dragging us backwards,
Right.
it's hard to focus on the other stuff that we know needs.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Anything else on water?
I don't have anything to add to that. We'll go on the wastewater. We're good, DMR for last month. We have met, just in July, the phosphorus. We do not, as of this point, need to buy a credit. We're under by like 3. So we got 2 months to go. I have no indication with the addition and feeding of alum that we will exceed. So we should be good to go there. That'll be the first time in many years that we didn't have to purchase. So I feel pretty confident that we can acquire that. You might notice that we did not haul liquid sludge. We were able to press 11 tons out of limping the press along. Why? Well, we just figured it was less expensive if the press was working, push it through. And so we did get that out. I can tell you that we did have him haul several thousand out yesterday, just so that the phosphorus was removed, nutrients were removed, because we've learned squeezing, pressing, you're putting all those nutrients and water back through the plant. So you do have to physically get it off-site. So we did pull some out yesterday. So it's moving in a good direction that way. There's a typo, the last item there, completed items. That should have referred to the pressure reducing valves, the recycled water valves. That's been on our open project list for a while. That is part of the 2018 upgrades that we're going to be doing. So that everybody is understanding what that intended to say.
It's the pressure reducing valves. and
Pressure
valves.
reducing valves, and there's recycled water valves. That's going to be addressed in the 2018, so we don't need to mess with that now. We have things working in a manner that they work sufficiently enough. Greg did touch base about the influent pump that has sprung a leak today. So we have that in line to be replaced, so that's nothing really new. We were planning to do it, it just might get pushed along a little quicker if there's any pushing to be done. Last month, we fixed a check valve flat in the treatment plant in the waste valves. Those are working. And open item number one, the digester fill piping. Since we put that in, we have realized that those pipes stay full. They don't leak back to the plant anymore, and they are above the water line to a certain extent. So we're going to need to remove them before winter so they don't freeze. So that tells me those pipes were put on before we were operators here. So that valve was leaking for a while, and those pipes were put on so that they could fill those pits, because otherwise the water level was at this level and it was leaking back, so they could only fill to the top of that pipe and then it would all go back to the plant. So they put about an 8 to 10 foot piece of plastic pipe on top to allow them to fill the pit. So that has been leaking for a long while. Now it's fixed and it doesn't leak back in.
So those extensions could be removed and
They need
stay
to
on.
come off. They look like they are just being clamped on. It's just two band clamps, plastic pipe. So we will have we'll do one tank at a time, empty it, take the band clamp off, and it should be.
Are you gonna have,
I'll probably ask for assistance from the guys there, just ladders and people to hold and, yeah. But I don't think that's gonna be any project of any magnitude. That's a ladder and 3 guys and a screwdriver to come off quickly, so. Smoke testing, we're still waiting for things to dry out, and at the rate we're going, getting in the hurricane season, and I'm crossing my fingers, but it's there. I do have it's a false chlorine leak alarm. I have not been able to find the power source that keeps causing that thing to ring out. We have disconnected it from the known terminal and box, and it continues to ring out, so I might have to ask the presence for Mike and Mike to come down and trace some more wires, because it still rings out and we've disconnected it. So I don't know, it's back feeding from
Freaking good.
someplace, yeah, so. And when it rings out overnight, like 12 in the morning, whatever, it calls as an alarm, and it's not, it just says alarm at the sewer plant. So somebody almost has to go in and respond to it
verify that?
to find out that it's a false alarm, but, so that's why it's on there.
So that's costing money.
Either that or I'm calling somebody local to verify that things aren't power outage or whatever, so.
I'm sure Mike and Mike will gladly give you a hand.
Yeah. So, that is all that I have.
Thank you. Anything else under wastewater for the operator? Thank you, Mr. Hope. Move on then to the solicitor, Mr. Dissinger.
Thank you. Primarily, I have put together a bid package for your trash. Midway through doing this, the county came out with its solid waste ordinance and plan. So it was necessary to make our proposals comply with their ordinance. Although theoretically, we had 3 years to come into compliance, but it didn't make much sense to prepare a bid package. It's basically for curbside pickup with optional recycling. You can take it or not, but that would go along. I didn't know how you wanted to do this. It's in the form now, ready for final edit. I need to go over some fine points with Chris and make sure that we're happy. I didn't know if you wanted to review it when we have it ready, or just authorize advertisement when
It's
we're
already
happy.
been authorized for advertisement as soon as you get it
Okay,
reviewed.
so it's ready to go. It's in good form, and we'll figure out. Do you want to schedule a ward for the next meeting, kind of thing, or what would you?
Is that too ambitious of a time frame?
I don't think so,
I don't either.
Okay. Let's plan on that.
because we'll send it directly to trash haulers. I mean,
Right,
we're not gonna-
It has to be advertised, but there's plenty of time
Right,
to advertise, that kind of thing, so.
If you want to finalize it and
Yep,
advertise it.
All right.
we'll be
Sounds
ready
good.
To look at the responses in September.
that's all I want to talk about.
Anything else? Okay. Anything for the solicitor? Thank you, Mr. Dissing.
You're welcome.
I don't believe the fire chief is here. He may come in later. Does anyone else have anything fire-related, fire company-related? Move on to the mayor, Mr. Capuano.
Only thing, junior council members, if you know of anybody, please send them my way if they're interested. What's up?
Sophia got me.
I think that she could do, I think she could do a great job, but I don't think I should be the one
Does it make sense to have like some letters of interest come in?
I think it does. I think we should do, I think if anybody who's interested, I think they should submit a letter of interest, just to say why they're interested in doing it. You know, most things that I've read and done the research on, it's typically high school, but I think that we could go down to the middle school, and I think if you did, something like, 12 and up, based on the letter of interest, I think that would be, a good idea. We can have more than one.
I think touching base with the guidance counselors perhaps
Yep,
at the
and
middle and high school.
I'm gonna do that as
Awesome,
well.
awesome.
But I just wanna get it out there for you guys as well, because ultimately what they're gonna do is they're gonna partner with a council member. So they're gonna come to committee meetings, they're going to be a seat at the table. So I just wanna make sure that you guys are aware, and any of you that are willing to take on someone, please let me know, because that'll make a difference as well.
Thank you for your work with that.
With the, reaching out to the guidance counselors, is there any possibility of some kind of credit towards their school by attending the meetings?
I haven't read that they do any sort of credit.
Okay, so it's just completely extracurricular.
It would be good work for their resumes,
Yeah.
applying to college. Certainly.
Yeah, it's really it's that next line of people into, public office, ultimately. Other than that, that's all I have.
I'd just like to, on page 2 of the minutes from last month, we kind of breezed over this last month, and I breezed over when I reviewed the minutes, but Mayor Capuano has accepted position on the Pennsylvania State Association Borough Strategic Action Committee, and I just want to reinforce that for the record, for the public, that, I served as mayor for just over 9 years, and Jack was mayor for 3 years or so, 2 years, I'm not sure, but I think that having some presence and some representation of Perry County and of the borough outside of our little world, I think is certainly appropriate, and I thank you for taking that up. I kind of missed that and didn't hit on it last month, but I think in a lot of cases, communities, including ours, but like ours, we focus on our little tiny world, and there's a much bigger world around us that has a lot to offer. So I think that having different vantage points and different viewpoints is valuable, and I think that's exactly what you're going to get.
Thank you.
So thank you for your work there. We also have a codes enforcement report, a written report for July from Mr. Place. Any wish for comment there or anything for the mayor? Thank you, John.
Only thing I would add, if news reporters contact anybody, if we don't answer, and we just don't respond, they're gonna print whatever they wanna print. So, for whatever reason, they didn't contact me, I guarantee she'll contact me from now on. But please, if you get a phone call from someone and you don't wanna respond, give it to me and I'll respond. But the last thing we want is erroneous reports going on the news that we didn't respond to.
If anyone's not aware, what John's referring to is CBS 21 last week, I believe, aired a story about how treacherous it is to walk down the street in Duncannon. And I thought it was erroneous, I thought it was inappropriate. And it's interesting because the very day or the day before that she published or that she aired that story, she had contacted me on the EMS behalf about, on the borough behalf, about Penn Township and Duncannon merger and the status of that. And I said, we talked about it 6 months ago and nothing's happened, nothing's come of that. We didn't even do a feasibility study that we didn't pass council. I said, so, she had correspondence with me. I know she didn't put it together that I was also involved with the EMS behalf or, on the heroin front, but that question never came up. There was never any discussion about the situation because I'll proudly report that, from where we were from an EMS perspective in July, August of 2016, 2017, we're not responding to as many calls. I'm hoping I don't jinx myself tonight, but we're not responding to as many calls, and we have had, I think, one fatality in the whole Duncannon area for the year, none in the borough. So that's good. Last year, the numbers were not nearly as good. I attribute it to probably some more awareness, some more fear, in the public. I don't know that the police department presence or absence affected it really either way. But I think that there's a little bit more fear, a lot of recognition, a lot of discussion about it. So, people might be thinking twice or they're going somewhere else or what. But I think countywide, the number has been down. I can't speak to that specifically, but I can say in Duncannon, instead of every 10 days, our average about every 20, 21 days that we're seeing. So it's still not great, but not nearly as bad as.
But I did respond in writing, and Courtney did attach it to the news story.
Great.
So, but it took a little bit of work to do that, and I know that I don't know, she wouldn't tell me who she called, but she said that she was calling people and nobody responded, which tells me she may or may not have called people.
I got an email at 8:30 the evening before the story was published.
No.
The story was published at 10 o'clock the next morning.
Right.
I didn't see it before like noon the next day, but
Yeah, I get phone calls, but I had similar situations, and I didn't even know what it was in reference to.
But she has every contact number and email that she possibly can from me, so my guess is she'll get a hold of me next time.
Well, the interesting thing is that all the news media has my contact information. This is not the first time Channel 21 did not reach out on a story. And I didn't get any email, any phone call. They have my cell number. 21 is kind of a unique situation in the local TV business in that they're at the bottom of the ratings. And so they try to do things differently to try to build their ratings, and 21's probably going to get even dicier now because their new ownership group takes a very different approach, and you'll see a lot more stuff that's not local that's produced by their chain, not the network, but the station's ownership group and so forth when 21's on a story and you have not been contacted even after the story's out by any of the other media, that pretty much tells you all you need to know about the story. So your reply I did see and was spot on and really well done. It would have been nice if they'd have had that in their broadcast report because their website's not getting traffic. They're getting.
Oh, no, it was tough. It was tough to find. Trust me.
Yeah.
2 days later when they posted it, it was tough to find the story. So the damage in some cases has already been done.
I agree wholeheartedly with the mayor that, I think as public officials and probably typically encouraged by our solicitors, we're encouraged not to talk to the media too much. But I believe, and I worked for a conglomerate in Harrisburg for 6 years, and I believe that not giving them nothing, and this is nothing against local print media by any means, but not giving them some response, some commentary, they're still going to run a story.
That's right.
And I'm not going to say that I'm fabricated, but they're going to come up with what they can, and we have a little bit of control about that message if we give them a chance for an interview. I'm certainly okay with, I don't know that we've ever appointed an official PIO, Public Information Officer for the borough, but generally those responsibilities have fallen upon the manager. Certainly, if anyone at this table is, approached, you're elected official, you can certainly speak on your own, as an elected official. It sounds like John has a face for television, wouldn't mind doing it. I always tell him I have a face for radio, so,
If they'd like to, they can come and go for a walk with me, because I walk through town multiple times, so
so do I.
mostly to get ice cream, but
We need to get what you do.
That's true.
I've never been afraid to walk down the street.
But where they chased by chickens.
Listen, I have a poodle, and I always take her for a walk in the morning, early in the morning, and usually between 10 and 11 at night, and everything's fine.
Did you walk on Market Street?
Not usually.
I didn't think so. But what are we doing as a town to enforce any of the speed limits?
We don't have an ability to enforce speed limits.
We don't. And it's a wild west on Market Street.
I can tell you that the state police did pull people over early in the morning not long ago, correct, Kathy? Didn't somebody get pulled over?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, but that was in the middle of the night.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, so they did in the middle of the night at least.
They've at
Enforcing
least,
speed.
at least since November, they've had at least 3 details in the borough, where they've had multiple troopers, doing speed checks, doing seatbelt checks,
DUI stuff.
DUI,
Some DUI.
enforcement. I have photos from 2 other stops, but
That's why I asked this gentleman here about it, because I've seen him walk his dog. But I walk Market Street specifically just to keep an eye on it.
I walk Market Street at least once a week.
And I've been testing the crosswalks. Oh, you won't believe the people don't even pay any attention to them.
I've had a couple close calls, but I would have to say, more often than not, people aren't slowing down. If I'm standing by the edge, get right, most of them do slow down.
Yeah,
I always wave and say thank you.
I, for one, always hesitate, you're to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. Well, if they're still on the curb, they're not in the crosswalk. So, there's that variable. Are they going to step
Carry a
out
ladder
in front of me,
or
or
watering
are they already in?
Carry a ladder and watering can in the square, they stop, because I walk right out. They see a ladder, to that ladder, they're right to the limit. They did that.
That one's gonna
I said,
scratch my
right out in
car.
front of them, they will stop. So far. Maybe get another
You're
ambulance call, I don't know.
In all seriousness, I like to call 21 and thank them. Because I live on Market Street, and it's horrible. This nut down here with this crotch rocket, he hits 3 gears till he hits the end of town. Now, I don't know nothing about motorcycles, but 3rd gear, and a crotch, he gotta be doing 60, 70 mile an hour.
Now, Mike, for the record, it was more about the heroin and.
It was more the safety of
It was
the
more
driving.
safety.
They made it sound like you were gonna walk down the street and somebody was gonna come up and stick a needle in
It
your
was more of
eye.
the it was more of people afraid of being jumped by an addict looking
Yeah.
for.
Now, I don't have no fears any time walking through town. No, that's not, except for Market
On the
Street.
street.
That's why I don't want to see ever pavement. I want torn up, I want holes in it, I want craters, and I'll pay, seriously, for all the speed bumps.
The way
I'll
things,
install them.
the way things are going, we're not in a financial situation to pay them.
I'm so glad,
That's okay.
Now, be careful.
so careful.
I'm so glad.
Anything else from or
before.
for the mayor?
Just one note on Tony's report. His activity will be a little limited the next couple of weeks. He and his wife just took in a young one that they're caring for right now, and so until school starts, he's juggling with his wife for covering childcare for the kid during the day, so his hours may be a little bit limited, but he is available if we need him. We'll call him in and so forth.
Something we discussed tonight during the personnel committee meeting, which is appropriate to discuss now, is looking at that position for budget time for next year, and if that position, not specific to Tony, but if that position needs more time, needs more availability, whether it's appropriate to increase the number of budgeted hours for that position, and also, I don't know that it's a full-time need, but more regular part-time or more hours through the week, or a second person or a different person, I don't know, but I think having at least some consideration of that with budget preparation is appropriate.
I'll say we've talked about that a little bit in revitalization.
Yeah, right.
And I was actually wondering if it would behoove us to have a second person with certified to do it if Tony has to be up. I don't know if one of our crew would be in, I don't know how that would work if,
What we actually, we discussed that very thing, you know, having a second part-time person. I think having, you know, 2 eyes on everything and having backup and multiple witnesses is always a good thing, but I think, you know, we run the risk of if there's not really good communication there between those two.
Right.
The mom and dad thing, well, dad told me I could do this, you know, go to mom kind of thing. So just, there needs to be really good collaboration, communication between whoever this individual would be. But the first step for next year is to consider, you know, what hours do we want or need to address the issues that position addresses. So just keep that on, you know, in your mind, Bob, if you want to make a note for budget time.
Already doing it, yep.
Determine. Okay. My favorite report of the night, Secretary.
No, nothing.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Anything for Mrs. Bauer? Borough Manager, Mr. Corey.
That's more than usual, Kathy.
I said 2 words.
Nothing to report. Get it up to 3.
Next month.
Just 2 things to update you on. All the action items are under, that are in my report are under other places in the agenda, but the ITF RFP has been completed. Bill has completed his review. It will go out now, and then we will be inviting firms to come in and visit with us and evaluate our situation and come back with their recommendations and proposals. So that's the status on that, and Bill already updated you on the trash RFP, so.
The IT, if you recall, is
Phase 2 EIP grant.
Phase 2 EIP money of $117,000. The intention being server upgrade, computer hardware upgrades, software upgrades, and also the big ticket items, the generator to power this building and potentially the other 2 buildings in the complex. Obviously, we don't know what those numbers are going to look like, the breakdown.
Yes, I've got that on my desk.
That's in process. We want to get some things moving on that. Question, Chris, was in that RFP, is there any consideration, and forgive me if I already know this answer, we had talked several times over several years about electronic security.
No, that's not part of this.
Both here and at the sewer plant?
No.
Okay. If it would come in and have some money remaining?
It has to be things that were in the EIP plan, and that was not part of it. That was not a recommendation in the plan.
Okay. Very good. Anything else do you have?
No,
Anything for the manager? And there was nothing on page 3 of your report, correct?
magic.
Okay. Visible link.
Polar bear and snow storm.
Anything for the manager? Mr. Grogan?
Yeah, did I understand correctly, last month, the marks down at the sewer plant, that's the floodplain marks? The ones, the elevation marks?
Like, yeah, the magic marker looking things with the numbers.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the actual floodplain?
Yeah, so if you go inside the first garage, you'll see, you drew the big line on the column, that's like the benchmark.
Yeah.
We were, right kind of where we thought we'd be, about 6 feet up from the floor, and, you know, obviously Agnes is the big one that is up in the ceiling, but yeah, the 100-year flood's right around that elevation, so.
That's great.
so.
If that's the case, majority of the properties from flash and light up might not be in the floodplain on the east side of the Market Street then.
Most of them are. You'd have to look at the floodplain map. The
I know what
line's
the map
squiggly.
says, I still have, but according to your measurements in that from 72 flood, that was before the little light
His
switches
measurements
on
mean
my
nothing
first-
to FEMA.
Excuse me, let me finish.
Okay.
That mark is like below my first floor light switches, which that difference, like you said there in that column, would actually put the floodplain below my basement.
The floodplain is based on FEMA's maps, not on anything that we measure. So there's not an appeal process. We can't say 72 it was here. They've got all the numbers, all the figures. They actually are working on a revised new floodplain map that I'm surprised we haven't heard anything more, because I was at a meeting months and months ago up in New Bloomfield where they unveiled the draft of it. But it does not make things any easier on anybody in town. It actually expands it a little bit.
So when you get one of those FEMA permits, you have to get that floodplain elevation. Is that part of the permit?
For most of them, yes. If you're doing work that doesn't change the footprint of the building, doesn't change, anything that doesn't disturb any of the land or anything like that, we can waive the elevation certificate. still have to have the rest of the application, but because it's not going to, it obviously isn't going to impact the flood elevations, so we can waive that. That is assuming that the work falls below the substantial improvement designation of 50% of the value of the assessed value of the property. Once you hit that threshold, then the elevation certificate's going to be required, because we need to be able to determine that in your plans everything is elevated above the floodplain by 18 inches to meet that requirement in the ordinance. So. But that's
Well,
only
that's
if
cool,
you.
because 18 inches above floodplain, you live in my basement. So,
Is the floodplain the 100-year floodplain?
That's the
Like-
mark.
Yes,
That's
that
the
is,
mark.
but you gotta be
So-
careful, because even as an engineer, I'll warn you, you look, you stand there, you look, and you're like, oh, my house is equal to this line.
No, no,
It
no.
does not work.
We
like
know
that.
where the water
I know
level
where
was.
72
But,
is.
that's not what they don't go by
And
that.
measuring down to
They're not going
that,
by the 100.
They're not-
puts you way
they're-
below my basement.
Well, technically, first of all, they call it the 1% now. They changed their nomenclature because people would think it means that, oh, we had one, it's not gonna happen for another 100 years.
Right, I understand.
But
So this would be a good court case, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it, Mr. Solicitor?
Don't mess with the floodplain rules.
they have their determination, their map is what shows you that determination, and, how they figured that out, I couldn't tell you, but I know they didn't just go around and trace where Agnes was, or,
Something to keep in mind,
Any
Roger,
other
that
flood?
property of yours is above the floodplain too.
Well, keep in mind too, that flood elevation and floodplain are two very different values. So that was explained, by our former solicitor pretty in depth.
I think the new
2-3
map,
years ago.
it reaches right up to Roger's back door, but I'm not positive. I'm
The map-
teasing, he's way up on the hill.
The mapping is what,
No, he owns a property on
Oh,
that
I
side
didn't
of
know,
Market
I didn't know
Street.
that, I was just talking about his house.
Hopefully only for 22 more days.
the mapping is all designated by FEMA, and that's what we go by unless, there is a process to challenge that, but it's not an easy or quick process. So the mapping is a vertical, look at the plane from the sky essentially. And I know the maps for the borough, because we're right on the edge of a map, are very difficult, even the new maps, to decipher online, because I've done it. And I've got 2 properties that are right on that cusp as well, so it's a challenge, and again, looking at elevation versus plane is 2 very different values. So I don't know, were those marks as a result of an elevation study?
Yeah, so
Yeah, okay.
we did it for the purposes of the treatment plant planning, but then we actually, just today, the guys are down again to get a couple more measurements, because, I guess FEMA's offering a discount, essentially.
Well,
if
we
you
need,
get a
we need
real
the elevation
certificate.
certificate
Right.
for that, and also for the plant needs a floodplain development permit for the upgrades that are being done,
Right.
so.
Yeah, so that was prompted a couple months ago, Mr. Grogan, we received a letter from FEMA regarding that specific property, because it's so obviously in the floodplain based on the maps. And part of that process was the elevation study, which he completed for us.
Yeah, and it's all good, because we might even get money from our insurance companies also, there's a possibility of that, the flood insurance too.
Flood insurance is underwritten by FEMA generally, we don't have private flood insurance.
I beg to differ, though. The same flood insurance that you have is the same as I do, and they paid for me to do improvements on my house.
They may, they're underwritten by FEMA is what I'm telling
In
you.
2011, they were gonna pay us to move some things down there at the plant that never got moved either.
I wasn't aware of that. Interesting. At any rate, we're working on the savings. It's a 20% potential, cut lock-in, as opposed, if I'm speaking out of turn, please tell me, as opposed to some automatic increases that are pretty significant over the next couple of years if we don't do this process. So
Good.
that's what promulgated all of that.
Yep, good.
Move on then to the treasurer's report. Number 10, we have the weekly banking review before you. Any wish for action on the treasurer's report? Is page 2 our CDs?
Yes,
Okay, so that's every CD we have.
that is correct.
And there were several that don't have 7/31/2017 balance, the top half.
Those are checking account. I modified a form that already existed to show what our balances were at December 31st, 2013, 14, and 15. The very first page is actually all the checking account balances. That's the weekly banking review. The second page is the CDs analysis.
The asterisks are all ones that matured and they were put
Exactly.
in the respective business accounts. That's the key at the bottom.
When did these ones mature, the ones that are still?
In December.
12/23.
It's on the very first page of the banking review, you'll see it in the notes.
What's our plan when they mature? Do we have a plan, what we're gonna do with them when they mature?
Council's last direction was that when they were matured, not to roll them over, so they've been going into the appropriate accounts.
Do we, I know we're not doing pooled cash, but do we wanna look at doing some sort of like money market account?
Well, we
To
did
get maybe a little
negotiate,
better rate
you might remember, we had a
Right.
little, we were able to get money market rates on all of our checking accounts,
Okay.
business accounts. We had a bit of a discussion with the bank, and the bank are now paying 0.20%. So that's money market rate. So we're good.
The electric CD that was matured 12/23/16, that, something I wanted to mention under unfinished business on utilities. We had talked a couple months, actually in November, about 9 months ago now, about pole replacement. Has there been any further action with checking our poles, seeing where we stand, and making sure that they're being replaced as needed?
Not yet.
Okay. Don't let that fall to the wayside.
Don't let it fall my truck in.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I just had this discussion
Got a
the
kayak
other
on
day.
there now.
That if we've got electric funds, especially a $40,000 CD, that needs to be a priority with the electric fund, is surveying those poles and replacing the ones that are approaching their lifespan. Because that, if you recall, that project after Mr. Wolfersberger's van was destroyed because of a pole the borough dropped on his van.
Nichols and McCoy did that. The borough guys didn't have anything to do with that. All right, let's-
But it was a borough-owned pole.
Well, it was, yeah, but Nichols did.
But the project was started to routinely test and replace poles. That project, unbeknownst, at least to me, a couple years ago, under a former manager, was stopped. And there was no more pole surveying or replacement, I'm told, because of money. And I only found that out by talking to Mr. Criley during the generator transformer upgrade down on Market, or on the Apple Tree Alley back in November. So that was a very big concern, because fortunately, no one was in his van, and it did fall on someone's house. The next time, it may not be so lucky.
That's serious stuff.
Any wish for action on the banking review?
Make a motion to accept the banking review. This one subject to audit. Subject to audit.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Young and second by Mr. Williams to accept the weekly banking review and the treasury report subject to audit. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 11 is the ratification and approval of bills. You also have before you the selected check register. These are the bills that have been paid and are to be ratified.
Make a motion to pay and ratify the bills.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Young, second by Mr. Crawford to pay and ratify the bills as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You also have a year-to-date statement of revenues and expenditures, kind of a status report as of 8/3. If there's any questions specific to that, I didn't really get a chance to look over that in detail, but if there's any questions specific to that, you know, contact Bob in the office. He'll be able to provide answers and more information if needed. But take a look at that. That's, you know, we're 2/3 of the way through the year, so we're starting to look at no more general fund revenue coming in at this point, but still having the balance of year expenses. I think from what I see here, we're not in terrible shape,
No, we're okay.
but I didn't feel quite as warm and fuzzy 3 months ago. Move on then to standing committees, facilities and fleet, Mr. Upland.
I have no good news for anybody today.
Thank you.
First item is the Ford L8000 truck that we purchased went back for inspection again, and this time it has a cracked head. The head is cracked in one of the exhaust ports. In fact, I was told later it was 2 of them. It's not leaking coolant, it's just leaking exhaust and won't pass inspection. So I was able to get some figures from Mike Crilly here about what we need to fix it. The head would cost $2,802. The head gasket would be $130.20, so that's a total of $2,932.28, excuse me. And labor to install that would be $760, for a total of $3,692.28. And the company that's doing this is a company that brings in their big 50-ton of fun wrecker to lower our sled at the New Year's Eve. And they're doing this supposedly at a rock bottom price. So I asked Mike, I said, is the truck worth putting this money into? And he said, yes. We did go to an auction, and I looked at some of those trucks down there, and I wasn't impressed. Some of them needed all new rubber to start with. And he later found out, when he was down there, that one of them had a bad transmission, and they never mentioned that when they came up for sale. He said, I heard it from guys standing around talking to other people there in that truck. And I asked him, I said, were any of those good deals down there? And he said, no. So they went from anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. They didn't have the large size plow that we have. So he thinks that we ought to repair this truck that we have right here.
And this was the truck we purchased from Penn Township
Yes.
last year. We paid $5,000.
$5,000.
Do we have a sense of the value of the truck? Is Kelly Blue Book or?
No, not anymore.
Any of the
We
service-
also put, I would tell you too, that the truck is in far better shape other than this than it was when we got it.
I know a lot of body work
We
was
put a
done.
lot of work into it.
Any sense for what we've spent already on that vehicle?
I don't have a way of breaking that down.
I think even if we get,
I think when said and done, you'll have 10,000. With this repairing, you'll have about $10,000 in that truck.
Is there a way to substantiate that number?
Oh, we can go.
I'd like to know what we've spent already on it.
We can try, but it'd be very difficult because when it was spent, you know, we'd have to go back and look at all the parts invoices and then get the guys to tell us, okay, was this part for that truck or for that? And then we have no way really of tracking the labor, which was a lot of it, because it would just show up as shop hours. A lot of it was Mike, who his hours aren't broken out because of being salaried.
And 90% of the product used on the truck is product we use every day for desalting. That black that you see on there, they buy it by the drum to keep the truck so the salt doesn't eat the frames. The only other repair that we had to do to that truck is it did snap an axle.
That was not an axle.
Yes, that had a, wow, when he went around,
That was like the first week we had it. wasn't
yes, yeah, it snapped an axle.
it? Yeah.
We did find out ever since that Township and them did put a new transmission in that truck. So there's been a lot of upgrades. It's very low
What
miles,
year-
very
what
low
year?
hours.
What year is it?
Do you have the years?
1995.
I was gonna say 98.
What are the
97.
miles and hours?
Around 44,000 when we bought it, I think.
Was it that high?
I'm just off the top of the head, I'd have to
Okay.
check with Mike. I didn't get that information from him.
Do you have any sense of the hours? Any sense of the hours on the vehicle?
They don't measure hours on it, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's hours and.
Is there an
and
hour
miles
meter
that.
on it?
Yeah,
I can't speak to that.
I know they're low. But I don't know what they are, right off the top. I don't want to quote any.
So what was the total to get this head replaced, Frank? So it's 3,000?
3,600 and change. What was any idea on the cost to replace the axle?
Chris, we were under
I didn't
$1,000
even know
bucks,
I didn't
weren't
even know we had to replace it,
Yeah, I
so.
don't know.
we purchased the axle, those guys put it in. We put it in. I know it was well under 1,000. And And anything else, you wanna talk about anything new that they might have put on that, other than general maintenance? Because first thing Mike did was flush the whole truck out, all new filters, the whole 9 yards. That would have been the only two things. That, the axle would have been the only other expense on top of the truck.
How often, this truck was bought, I believe, primarily for snow plowing.
Snow plowing and hauling, when they got a haul, instead of using the small dumps to make 2-3 trips to the mountain when they're digging, Mike can dig, say a water leak, put it all in this dump bed in 1 trip to the mountain.
And this truck is bigger than the yellow.
Yes, yes,
I think this one's 35,000 pounds gross weight.
yes.
I think at that price, and what we paid for it, if you get another winner out of it, you're almost worth it.
I seem to remember there was a value of $4,000 that crossed this table. I don't know where that came from.
That was, as I recall, that was an estimate of what we thought it would go for, because they were taking bids. And I think that was kind of based on what we'd seen other ones go at auctions and so forth.
Okay. Are you making a motion, Mr. Epple?
I'll make that a motion to repair the truck. It's up for annual inspection. And the total for this job of repairing the head is $3,692.28. I would like to increase that to $4,000 to take care of the rest of the inspection and whatever else happens.
I'll second that.
The motion by Mr. Epley, a second by Mr. Crotharmel to repair the truck for inspection not to exceed $4,000. That money's coming from,
I still cannot figure out how much we have in fleet facilities here. Well, every time we want to do something, we take it from Highway 8, so I don't care where the money comes from.
Bob, do you have a recommendation?
I'm not sure how Highway 8 works with regards to equipment repair. I think if it's used for transportation, for highway only, I guess it's an appropriate place. Otherwise, it would be the general fund.
Or a split with, because it is used for water and sewer.
Yeah, you could do a split that way.
Well, and we split everything we can. If it's used for more than one thing, then we can split it on a pro rata share basis.
Water, sewer, streets.
We can do it
Split it 4
5 ways.
5, do it. Thank you.
Whatever's appropriate, I would leave that to Bob as far as splitting.
Any further discussion?
I think 3 is all, so good.
Okay.
All those in favor give consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I would like to vote no.
Okay.
Mr. Epler?
Next
Motion
item-
carries.
Beg pardon?
Motion carries.
Okay. Next item I have, I went to Mike to come up with a long-term list of what was needed for fleet facilities, and his answer was, we're short-handed right now, and he doesn't have time to do it, so I'm going to try and check with him occasionally when he can get at, and we can start this. That's the best I can come up with on that. And as I said, we did go to the surplus auction. We had $11,000 approved to buy a sweep sweeper, and we didn't get it. And there's also money there to supposedly get a snow blower, and we didn't get that either.
If you saw Mr. Corrigan's report, he is asking for capital expenses to be considered for budgeting purposes and also a capital improvement plan on page 2. Those items that we can start to budget and start to maybe save some money, street sweeper specifically, I certainly think would be in that realm. Anything else?
That is all I have.
Anything for fleet and facilities? Facilities and fleet, I apologize. Move on to Finance Administration Communication, Ms. Young.
There's the email that CEDACOG says that Perry County is going to have some extra money left from their 2013 CDBG funds. So they would like to allocate that to us. What we would have to do is sign a sub-grantee agreement And who's working on putting that together, writing the?
Cedar Cog's going to put that together. We
See,
just
they're gonna draft it,
need
okay.
approval to sign it.
So, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the sub-grantee agreement for the 2013 CDBG county contract.
You have to pay right in front of 1016 Market.
Motion by Ms. Young, a second by Mr. Williams to authorize the sub-grantee agreement endorsement for the 2013 CDBG county contract funds. That's expected to be $1,000 or $2,000, not a huge amount. Any further discussion?
It will be, the idea is to put it towards the Chestnut Street project.
Any further discussion? All in favor, give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so somehow or other, the authority's fiscal year went to June 14th. So we had approval to do the audit for 2016 and 2017 for the authority, but we still have to go back and do June to December of 2015. And they, the same auditor that's doing, that we've appointed as our new auditors, they have agreed that they would do it at a cost not to exceed $2,000. And we did reach out to the other auditor that from previous, and they were not willing to do that. So we would have to
They
go
did
with
the
the
first half of the year on the previous
Well, they would have
fiscal
done the full year.
Right, the previous fiscal year.
Right, correct.
But this also gets us back in line to match the borough fiscal year.
Right, so now the authority is changing their fiscal year to now be calendar year.
The authority took
That was
the
approved
action.
last month.
Yes, they took the action to get their fiscal year restated and also to approve using whoever the borough appoints as the auditor. That way, even though Bill had said that we could
Cleans
go ahead
that
and do
up,
it, but
yeah.
that does. get
Through
that-
2018, I think we approved.
Yeah.
And for the, if I understand correctly, for the 16 and 18 audits, they were, one was 1,500 and one was 2,000 for the whole year, correct?
Correct.
So this
And
is half that time.
what they had told us was that it would be, Bob, would you remember, was it 3 to 5 or something
It was
like
gonna
that?
be, it was gonna be $3,000 to $4,000 or $3,000 to $5,000 if they were not appointed to do the borough's audit. But since they were appointed by the borough to the borough's audit, they extended the lower $1,500 to $2,000 proposal, even though they didn't do the 2015 audit. They did it as a professional courtesy since they were appointed by this council.
I was just trying to understand why a 6-month audit is as much or more than a 12-month.
Well, it's an audit. It's still an audit. It's an audit. You know, $2,000 for any kind of audit is cheap. Whether it's 6 months or a year, it's cheap.
Right, and in essence, that's going to be their starting point, because now that's going to be where they're coming in at. So, there's a lot of front end on that. So I would like to make a motion to appoint Wagner, Dries, Ellisor, and Associates to complete the outstanding audit for the Duncannon Municipal Authority at a cost not to exceed $2,000 per year.
Second.
The motion by Ms. Young, a second by Mr. Crotharmel to appoint
WDE and
WDE and A, there it is, to complete the June to December 2015 audit of Duncannon Municipal Authority. Any further discussion? All those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I believe that's all I have. If anyone has anything for me.
Anything from the table for finance, administration, communication? Thank you, Kristen. Moving on to Parks and Recreation, Mr. Williams.
The only thing I have is National Night Out, I believe was a pretty good success. At least my end was, and I know down the square was. Darrell did a fine job. Thank you.
That's it.
I don't think we have the Halloween parade coming up, and that's still in committee form.
Do you know the date for the Halloween break?
Yeah, we did. I look at a calendar,
I messaged Tanya, but she didn't respond.
Yeah, it's the what's before the.
Halloween this year is on Tuesday,
It's the Saturday before.
The
Tuesday,
28th.
right?
No, not 28th,
21st.
that weekend, yeah.
Okay.
Because we didn't want it to coincide with the whiteout game.
Yes, that's right, that's right.
That's right.
And that'll be an evening parade?
Yes, sir.
So it is the 21st?
Yes.
Soon to see, I believe soon to see registration starting in September for that.
Absolutely. High kicks.
Lions whiteout game is October 21st versus Michigan.
Okay, so it's the week after that. I'm sorry, I thought you had all the stuff. I meant to get it from
28th.
28th.
That would have been a travesty.
Oh, gotta appease everybody.
You gotta buy the monitors and put them up so everybody can watch the game from the parade.
She just responded the 28th, I believe.
28th, okay, there we go.
Atta
You
girl,
heard it here
Tanya.
first.
Right on it.
So Halloween parade, Saturday the 28th, we'll probably end up,
Yeah, I know.
probably end up with trick or treat on Tuesday the 31st.
That's always the
Yes.
same, yeah.
Anything else, Rob?
To the best of my knowledge, I have nothing unless someone has something for me.
Anything from the table? Move on then to personnel, legal, and IT. We had our meeting this evening, had some discussion about credentials for borough staff. Specifically, the manager, goes out a couple times a week, typically just take a ride through town, see what's going on and where things are. Doesn't have anything identifying him as a borough official. We do have some magnets in the front room that he could put in his personal vehicle. We asked him to kind of coordinate with Mike if the yellow truck's available to use a borough vehicle for those purposes as opposed to his personal vehicle. And also to come up with some kind of name card, something pretty simple, nothing that's going to be in the way, but something for all the staff, anyone that may be on properties or out, out and about. A lot of people wear the bright green shirts, and I think having something more than just a small logo on their shirt to identify borough staff, although most people probably know them, I think would be reasonable and appropriate. So that's.
We used to have ID cards.
Okay.
We used to have ID cards.
I know.
We already have a format because we made one for Tony, so it won't be hard to.
If that's something that if you buy the media, I know the county, the 911 center, maybe not right now because we're in a radio switchover, but if you wait 6 weeks or so, the county 911 center has a card printer, actual card embossed or whatever it's called, that they've always told us if you buy the media, they'll print them for you, just give them the artwork and they'll take care of it. So that would actually be like a card.
I'll check with them.
Card. And something, again, they can clip on their own
Yes.
collar their belt, but I think it's reasonable and appropriate for our people that are out and people, checking water meters.
For
and
sure.
To have some ID.
And it's an
We had
area of
PPNL
fraud.
and the other, 2 weeks ago? They were going around checking the meters for replacement?
In the borough?
Yeah.
They can replace meters.
PPNL.
Yeah, they didn't realize they.
Yeah, Officer
they
Keene
did.
took care of that, don't
Yeah.
worry about that.
So, but I mean,
Officer
there's
Keene.
someone else that's walking
Yeah,
around
he
someone else's house.
Took him into custody
with
and brought him in to see me.
No idea.
Nah, he
Yeah.
was sitting in my kitchen for 2 hours drinking coffee.
Yeah.
I worked with him.
Dave brought the one guy, he rounded up one guy and brought him
address.
in and.
But they didn't realize that we have our own, you know?
I just had an email with somebody at PPL because they sent an email wanting information about because they were going to come to do assessments of our electric lines in the borough, and I had to explain to them,
Well,
no,
they check
you're-
the polls too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we have to pay
Yeah,
them?
don't do that before you say anything.
Oh, we didn't know that line ended there.
Dumb enough to do that.
So,
Yeah, there was a subcontractor, they paid them 2 guys for the whole day of work, they made a nice payday that day. Yeah, that was a subcontractor working for people,
yeah, he had ID.
The only other item I have is I'd like to make a motion to authorize the manager and the foreman to hire temporary employees for a 90-day period to get us through into the beginning of winter. And then we can assess at that point if we want to keep anyone on as part-time or otherwise.
Second.
I made the motion, Ms. Young has seconded the motion. I understand that Mike initially didn't want to add any staffing, but I think he got into summer.
Well, that
He
was
needing some staffing.
when we were only down one person, but we've got other issues. And the reason for the temporary is because our pool of applicants is extremely small, and without having met with any of them yet for interviews, not on paper a real strong pool. So our thought is that we can kind of use sort of a tryout almost. We can hire some people, and if they work out well, fine, but we won't be, and that way, then we'll come back through the regular process for approval before they become a permanent employee.
I made the motion, Christie has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That's all I have. Anything for personnel, legal, and IT? Move on to the public safety, Mr. Cromwell.
We did not meet this month because we had no items for the agenda for anyone. However, I did, just in the past couple days here, get an email from the fire chief making essentially a budget request for next year. He wants to see the fire tax moved up to the .65 mils that we originally discussed last year.
Did he cite any specific needs or?
He brought up the fact, again, that the borough hasn't contributed to their capital apparatus fund, or whatever they're calling it, since 2008 or so, whenever it was brought about. In my mind, honestly, that's a very significant increase that they haven't shown me any reason that it's warranted. So
Aren't they still trying to get a new?
they're trying to get a new aerial piece.
And an engine.
At the same time, yes. So that's about it. That's all I have.
Anything for Mr. Crowther on public safety? Move on to the utilities, streets, infrastructure.
I'm sorry. Carol, would you forward that email then, so I can get it out to finance committee?
Sure.
And take a look at it for the budget?
So what would that make it? So what would the difference be?
I think we ended up, once we finally brought it down to nothing, I think we were at just over half of that. Are you saying what would the total?
Right, so
draw?
what's the dollar figure?
Are we at point four right now?
0.48.
Yeah, I thought it was 40.
I was thinking it was 2.8, but yeah, you're probably right, it's probably 0.48.
And that yielded 28,000 or something?
I thought it was
25.
20?
25.
Okay, it was it was a $2,000 increase. It was 23, went to 25.
So we're looking at like 30,
37.
35.
Yeah, 35-ish. Yeah.
So it's about $10,000 increase. Okay. Anything else under public safety? We want on the utilities, streets, infrastructure, Mr. Kirkhoff.
We did not meet this month. We do have the screw press. Do we want to do that first, Chris?
Well, Greg in his report said about doing it in September. I thought when we met, you wanted us to
Yeah, there
authorize
would be no
preparing
harm to
the
do it
bid.
now. We're certainly going to do it. I think the actual timing will be right around our meeting in September. If for some reason you'd heartburn and wanted to wait till September, that's fine, but to do it now would be
I
fine.
think we talked about just staying ahead.
Yeah,
Was our
right,
whole goal.
correct, yeah.
That was a special meeting that we had for the sewer planning committee.
That would be good too, because I owe DEP a kind of a 60-day status report, which will be coming up the end of this month. And if we were to have that officially done, let me retract my previous statement. That would be good for that,
So, and
purpose
we're
of
just-
that.
This is just bid preparation, correct?
Correct,
That's all
yes.
I'll move to authorize the engineer to prepare a bid packet for the screw press
And associated equipment.
and associated equipment. Second, so moved. Any further discussion?
Just so that everybody's aware, this is strictly for the equipment, not for the construction, but the equipment has a very long lead time, so we need to get it out and ordered.
And that those funds are anticipated to come from loans that we're working.
Correct.
Any further discussion? I've made the motion, Mr. Kirkhoff has been the second for the screw press, bid preparation, and associated equipment only. All those in favor, your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, Chris, I think that the street signs were in, I heard.
Yes, I got a call last week while I was on vacation that they were asking where to deliver them, so I think they're here. I have
Yeah.
not seen them. I will.
They're very pretty. I have seen them.
Pretty.
They're shiny.
I apologize. I meant
No.
to go over and get one today, and then
Shiny
Mike
things.
wasn't there when I was looking for him, and
I'll
I
try
got
to
busy on
see
some
one
other
on
stuff. I was
Thursday.
gonna bring one over tonight to show
It's
off.
shiny and green,
You know, Craig, we were just about totally out of the picture on street signs.
What do you mean?
They went through the stack and stacks and stacks, and there was no Rachel Street. What street have we been screaming at for 5 years? For
Rachel Street.
There's no Rachel
There's no
Street.
addresses on it, that's why.
So
It doesn't matter, it's still
Scooter,
a street.
Scooter took a piece of cardboard, painted it green.
Who is Scooter?
I'm sorry, Chris.
Okay.
Young Chris.
It's Roush.
I know Chris, okay.
Yes.
I don't know Scooter, but I know Chris.
It's his nickname, Scooter.
Okay.
Painted a piece of cardboard the same size as the sign, green, put Rachel Street on it, so the next morning I'd be happy. But stuck down in the bottom of the pile, they were stuck together. We're covered.
We actually have one now.
Yes, we're covered.
So somebody with a girlfriend
Named Rachel.
There's a lot of Rachels around here, these guys keep
But I thought,
Let's get that one locked up on there.
because Craig and I have been after that for years.
I talked to a retired PennDOT official that they said they actually go to some of the local colleges and bring back truckloads of street signs that the different college kids all go and steal throughout the semester, and then they can't take them home because they can't carry them out the door. So they go take them all and bring them all back.
It's a true story.
Well, so I guess I assume we're gonna get started on getting those replaced. That'll probably
That'll
be
be
intermittent.
It would be beautiful to have those up for the Halloween.
They can't keep a sign up.
We will try.
At least that area maybe. I don't think we'll have all of town, but
I noticed, I don't know if it's Green Street, I think it's Green Street, there are no letters left at all on the sign. You can see where letters used to be.
But if the sign's green,
We will try, and I will communicate to Mike that the priority should be the parade route.
I'd like to see Rachel Street put up first maybe.
Naming that
For Ryan.
lady's name.
As soon as we order
You
one.
gotta see their sign.
Now I know where to switch.
That was a typo, Roger, that wasn't supposed to be
While I
ordered.
was over there.
And like I said, I don't know, I said I'd like to have my street sign, I think that's something we should at least keep
No,
some
because
over it.
they'll tear it down when they dig up the street, so you gotta wait till after construction.
Alright, I can wait.
I like that idea, I thought about that the other day when you mentioned, maybe the signs that come down, we bring them in and do some kind of a sealed bid on the signs we have. You know, if anyone from the community wants to bid on them, buy them, I think that's a good way to dispose of them, and, you know, maybe some collectors and.
but I can't buy one for Rachel.
There's
There is one Rachel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if
This is
anything, it
top
might
of
help
it.
pay for some more that we can
Right.
finish. I mean,
Right, I like that idea a lot, you know, after we get them all, after we get the old ones in, let's take inventory and we'll put it out.
Make sure they don't recycle them.
Put it out for a sealed, I think a sealed bid is appropriate.
You
Is there
could do,
any,
you could do it at
Bill,
the
do you have any issue
Halloween
with that?
shindig down there.
Bill, do you have any issue with the old street signs going out for a sealed bid?
No, that's what you should do.
Okay.
Good.
Very good.
awesome. And the other thing I have is, we've talked about tonight, pole replacement. And I kind of put that with streets. It's another thing that we have talked about having Mike look at. He's so busy. I don't know how we want to address, I mean, I would think we'd hire out.
It was actually something, and I'll have to check with Mike, because he was supposed to be getting in touch with Henkel's on it, and I think he just got busy with some other stuff and didn't get it.
Yeah, I don't think we did that in, Roger, you may correct me if I'm wrong.
Heckles.
We didn't do that, we just made sure it was done.
Yes.
And
So-
streets is kind of, I look at that as an everyone thing. So I try and let Chris know when I see something, when I'm out walking around. If any of you see anything that you think is like a really bad street that could use paving sooner rather than later, send it our way. Like I noticed that I think a lot of the alleys are in some of the worst shape.
There are new holes on Walnut Street, I noticed that yesterday.
And those are things I know we've talked about doing Market Street, but like some of these alleys aren't even streets anymore. And we've talked about maybe some alleys could be abandoned by the borough. It's all stuff we've been talking about. We can hopefully get some action.
I know one of the things Chris had mentioned maybe last month or a couple months ago was coming up with a kind of prioritized list of these are streets, this is the condition. You know, we can't obviously fix everything this year, but you know, some of them may require patching or some area patching, cold patch, whatever. Some of them probably, you know, like Locust requires a full.
Yeah, we've had, actually, there's been a couple that I've brought to Chris' attention, and they've all been patched to some extent. It's kind of one of those things that just is, we've been hitting it where, they've been hitting it when they could at places that we've told them. And as far as looking ahead, and we talked at our last meeting about coming up with a paving project, potentially trying to do X number of streets each year, or something, maybe whether it's financed or whether it's done with cash.
And repairing streets, if they're repairable, is a lot cheaper than building new
Correct.
streets.
And preventive maintenance, you really should be looking at the streets that are just about to really go down, like the curve, and the microsurfacing and some of those things that are a fifth of the cost of paving.
Right.
Will return themselves tenfold in the long run.
Yep.
It's hard to do that when you don't have a lot of cash going around, but you should look at it.
I forget my question. Do you have anything else?
I have nothing else, Chris.
Well, just that a lot of this falls into, as we talked about earlier, the capital plan and the capital improvement plan. And, you know, your capital improvement plan is not, it's not a set in stone, we're gonna do this, but it's giving you a plan, looking out 5 years ahead, trying to, for example, with vehicles, come up with a rotation, okay, what is the likely useful life of this vehicle, when should it be replaced, so that we're planning for these things instead of them coming up. You know, we're replacing things when we know they need to be replaced rather than wait until they break and then being in panic mode.
I do remember my question. One may be more for the engineer, or for Chris. We talked last month, the Butcher Shop Road culvert, and securing permission from the adjacent property owners to.
Letters went out to the property owners, Greg wrote them, they researched who it was, and I got those from him on Monday, and
Just yesterday.
they went out, they went out on Monday then, yes.
Okay, just want to make sure that's still on the radar. The LED lights are not in yet, is that what I understand?
I don't know the status of them, I know that Mike's got the go-ahead to order them.
Right. Okay. And have you had any further discussion or action on, I believe, the 700 block of High Street, that stormwater culvert that comes off of crosses High Street?
It's on Mike's lengthy list of
Okay.
stormwater
And we
culverts.
did, that
to
was
be
brought
looked
up, I
at.
think, the last meeting. We did not meet this month.
Okay. That was, it's going to require paving. I think it's all fill right now. I think it's all just dirt right now.
I'm not sure exactly what, I've got to check with Mike again. He had a bunch of them that he was looking at replacing, and he's,
I think the pipe's been replaced. I just don't think, I don't know if it was all replaced, but I think it's just some final fix to the road.
right.
Okay. Just want to make sure it's still on the radar. That's all I have. Anything else for utilities, streets, and infrastructure? Just want to revitalization development, Mr. Adams.
Just an update on the urban chickens here. We had a very interesting committee meeting, and we're pushing everything forward. After talking it over with Chris today, I believe the next committee meeting is September 12th, and him and I are going to work together to advertise that as a hearing. So I'm going to have all the information, what we're going to decide to do as far as, because we're pushing forward with allowing it. And I'm going to have, what's happening is I am answering the same questions 100 times a day from people emailing me the same questions. So I want to offer a public forum for everyone to come in and get their questions answered in one spot at one time.
Would it be worthwhile to create like a frequently asked question, like one-page document for somebody?
I actually am, I do have
Have it hand out, put it in the Facebook page or website.
I was gonna provide that for, like, almost like an agenda, I guess, for the meeting, like, okay, here's what we have so far, based on questions that have come up. But, yeah, I think that'd be beneficial, because I just now heard at the last committee meeting from people who are against it. So far, it's been just people championing it, you know, hey, yeah, let's do it, and then finally somebody came in and said, well, hold on. So, but that led to a bunch of emails from the other side, you know, so I just keep moving forward with it, but also have it, that the focus of the next committee meeting, having everybody come in here, you know, advertise it, actually push the advertisement, Facebook, you know, the Duncannon Borough page, you know, everything I can possibly do to get people to come at one time from all sides, so. And besides that, that's been the focus pretty much of my committee for the last 3-4 meetings, so that's all I got.
Anything for revitalization development for Mr. Adams? We've got unfinished business. Any unfinished business? Mr. Welch? Yes, sir.
I'd like to take the one other thing up with fleet facilities here. We have a meeting coming up on Thursday. I have nothing for it. Roger has nothing for it. I think we ought to cancel. I haven't heard anything that needs to be brought up at that meeting.
There was something,
Well, the one thing would be just in terms of, we need to be working on capital projects, but that doesn't necessarily have to be this Thursday, so.
Well, I'd like to have a meeting with Mike, and it doesn't look like it's gonna happen real soon.
Right.
Was there
We can-
something
we
else
can-
that, I seem to remember an email about, to be discussed at this Thursday's meeting? I don't know if it was capital improvements or if it was something else. Do you remember what that was? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
Budget request.
I thought it was something other than that. I don't have my email.
Did I maybe send something about another Thursday's meeting and say this
No,
Thursday?
it was something
Or was
specific.
fleet and facilities?
If it's not on top of your head, then it's not that critical.
Nah.
I'm okay with that as well, Frank.
Well, we'll cancel then.
And maybe what we can do too is figure out a time we can get Mike during the day, and, you know, we can meet with him and go over that stuff, and then when you have a committee meeting, we have all the information, we don't need to drag him in at night,
All right.
because Roger would be available. Who's the third?
I am.
Okay,
What do you need?
so we'll,
Okay. Very good.
Yes.
You're with that, Roger. There's no meeting Thursday. No, please, sorry. Okay.
That's fine, I have sewer authority.
I'm gonna go back to 2015 with a question to Roger. I think I know the answer. So adjacent to the Sesquicentennial, there were rifles created. It wasn't a borough project, it was in support of the Sesquicentennial event.
Correct,
A limited edition rifle produced by what's now Guns Plus.
yes. Well, it was produced by the guy.
But, right.
Yeah.
My father purchased one of those, and I know you had dealt with that, I was not involved in that at all. The Duncannon EMS, the EMS company didn't purchase anything, is that correct?
No.
Okay. And was there an indication by my father to you that it would be used for Duncannon EMS as a fundraiser?
Yes, as a fundraiser.
Okay. And that
And
was,
at the particular time, the funds weren't there to support the purchase, because you had to purchase the $900, and he was putting the money up for the purchase of it.
okay, so he owns that rifle? Yes. Okay. I knew there's been some discussion to that effect, I've heard a couple times, 2 years later, it keeps coming up. I didn't know what that transaction was, because I was not involved in that, but I remember you having a discussion with him, that he didn't own that. Very good. Anything else under unfinished business? Anything under new business?
I'd like to make a motion to release half of the EMS budgeted donated amount of $5,000. It's Duncannon EMS.
Is this the first half of the second half?
First half, there's been nothing of it, that there's $10,000 budgeted and nothing has been paid at this point.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Is it, well, I thought it was 5,000 this year.
It's 10.
It's 10 this year.
Motion by Ms. Young, second by Mr. Croft-Arnold to allocate $5,000 of the $10,000 budgeted amount for Duncannon EMS. Any further discussion?
I have a problem. It seems that there's maybe 2 or 3 political entities supporting the EMS figure, serving a wider area. And I'm questioning why a couple of entities have to carry the load for everybody else. Why aren't these other entities putting up some money towards EMS?
The only 2 entities this year that haven't made a contribution are Reed Township and New Buffalo Borough.
Have you contacted them to see what they can do?
Yes, I have. Reed Township has virtually no tax base. They've got very limited, they're in a tough situation because they've got a lot of call volume with the highway and the commercial development on Clark's Ferry. We cover about 50% of Reed Township, and they've got very few residents and very small population. New Buffalo Borough accounts for about 8 to 10 calls a year for us, and it's, in your report that you received, I think you did reports at the public safety meeting, their population versus their call volume is minimal. I don't know what their tax base or what their funding base is. I will tell you that for the last 8 or 10 years, when the borough has not had an allocation, that both Penn and Wheatfield residents have questioned the very same thing, because the call volume ranks Penn Township, Wheatfield Township, Duncannon Borough, and it's been pretty consistent that way. So Wheatfield and Penn have been asking the question, why are just the 2 of us supporting and Duncannon Borough's not. So,
Well, in this Reed Township thing,
mhm.
how many calls do you get on 22-322 in the, we'll call it the business area up there?
I have to look at the report to give it, I'm guessing 50 to 60 for the year. The report will tell you the exact number. And I believe all of those, unless we have a mutual aid call into another part of Reed Township or out of business or on the highway.
Are you getting paid for any of those?
With billing, if they're auto accidents, those actually reimburse fairly well because there's auto insurance typically. The medical calls, if we encounter a patient that's a transient, those are much harder to collect.
So, I'm trying to think, how could you compel Reed Township to do anything? I don't,
The struggle is it's just like the workman's comp, it's based on population.
yeah, no,
So,
that's what I mean. Like,
Other than,
they would have to put it on their real estate like we do. They have to tax the real estate.
no, they could do it out of the general fund if they wanted to.
No, but like to get the additional money they'd need, they'd put an additional tax in.
But I think we talked about that,
I don't know how the assessment, I mean.
it would be like $26. I mean, it would be something so small because I think there's 8 residents in that area.
That was with the workman's comp conversation.
Oh, yeah, the number of residents in the part that, we cover the same area as the fire company. And the number of residents, basically that's the bridge west, so it's really only the island.
Yeah.
And there are, I think you're right, eight
Yeah,
residents.
yeah,
Everything else
less
is
than a
business.
dozen.
The
Yeah,
majority of
But I
it-
think with the workman's comp, that's like, we can only take, with this, they could give us whatever they wanted.
Certainly.
Right.
It just, I mean, you can't compel them to do it. but we
What
could
was,
ask. I don't know.
Reed also doesn't make an annual contribution to the fire company.
Right.
As an FYI. What Reed did a couple years ago, I wish Byron was here to tell these specifics, but Reed is eligible for some gaming money.
Yeah, the
because
gaming money, because they're Dauphin County.
They're in Dauphin County, and I believe they order or have it, it's within whatever radius of the casino.
Okay.
So they were able to funnel some gaming money to the fire company, and I believe that's what either paid off a loan or purchased the officer vehicle.
Mhm.
So that was a one-time thing, but that's what they did for the fire company.
Is this something that you could, or the EMS could talk to Keller about, or?
I had a meeting 2 Fridays ago with the Deputy Secretary of Health,
Okay.
and he's a politician and a bureaucrat.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, it's not gonna be easy.
I'm on this, and.
It's a weird situation that I don't think many other places would deal with, where you'd have
Such a high call volume, but no
on a
residents.
border, it's like so small of an area.
And it's
Well,
also
and-
another county.
Yeah, anybody that has a highway going through, 81, 83, that there's no houses there, but there, there's auto
And
accidents.
Penn Township has said the same thing about US 15, US 1115, is, the call volume on 15 is less than it used to be on the
Yeah.
highway. But, 15 years ago, the call volume on US 1115, crashes, especially for people that weren't from the area, many were trucks from Canada, was tremendous, and it's declined. But, I remember Bob Schaefer saying at Wheatfield Township meeting that, PennDOT gave us this highway, and now we have to pay to patrol it, and we have to pay to, respond to it, fire, police, and EMS.
Mhm.
So it's a challenge, and I think that when last time I talked to Mark Keller about it, he gave an example of the western end of the county where you have townships that have bridges that are out that have been out for 6 years, 5, 10 years, because they don't have the money to replace the bridges. So emergency services are also not a priority for them. It's really, it's the nature of the municipality and whether they want to fund or whether they want to make a contribution or whether they think their residents are willing to, which we saw last year here, to foot that bill. Does that answer your questions?
Also, that.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Young, and a second by Mr. Crotharmel to release $5,000, one half of the 2017 EMS contribution. Any further discussion? All those in favor, give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Anything else under new business? Roger, I think you want to say something?
Are you on there now?
We're on new.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we open the mountain back up for hunting this year. First day of, the first 3 days of buck season, and then close the gate, and then open the first Saturday and the last Saturday of buck season. Just 5 days that we
doe
would,
season.
just buck season, the first season, buck.
You said first 3 days, and then you said first and last Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah, first 3 days,
Oh, Monday,
first and
Tuesday,
last,
okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. I have a question. I love that idea. Mr. Crowley on board with that, is he okay with
Yes.
that? Do you know, and maybe I don't want to ask this question, because I'm afraid of the answer, why it was stopped? I remember Carl Fox, as president of Sportsman's Club, come to a meeting about 10 years ago,
When it's
very
open,
upset about that.
when it was open constantly for the 2 weeks, what happened was, we were drawing tons of hunters in from Lancaster. And the only reason I know that is someone done a bunch of checks. So it was not even our residents in this area. Our residents would go up, and I know one, he lives down the street here, very nice gentleman. He couldn't even go up to his hunting spot because it got so crowded on the road. And then it got to the point that it was hard for our guys to get back into the mountain to do their waterworks in the morning. And it got trashy. So we just decided to close it. Now I would like to see it open just for those 5 days of buck, to see what it's like, and if there is problems, then we know.
I was gonna add two things. One is, do we wanna make sure that we put some sort of like park only on this side or something, so that we can at least have a way back through there? I don't know.
That's my
You can
concern,
only
is
really
that there's
park
really
on
no
one
room, a
side.
lot of places on that road to park.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe if there's places where you couldn't get it, we make a mark there that you can't park
You,
there. I don't
you
know how
can't
we-
actually park anywhere until you get up to the reservoir. From there on out, on the right-hand side.
The hunting isn't good until you get past the reservoir.
Right. You gotta go back in
When we used to
towards the
drive
top.
back here, nobody really parked there.
Right now, people can hunt there, they just have to walk.
Yes,
right?
they have to walk from the gate
Because it's
back.
actually in the Game Commission
And
hunting
that was-
access program.
That was hard on the older gentlemen of the community.
Is there parking when you get past the reservoir?
Yes.
So do we wanna just make it, you can only park past the reservoir?
Well, they can park down at Goose Pond. So that's before the reservoir. They could use that big parking lot. Goose Pond itself is a parking lot.
There's concrete pads down in the Goose Pond.
Yeah, they can't go on top.
Do we want, I'm just saying, do we wanna open it and make it so that they can't park where they could potentially block our vehicles by saying
Yeah,
they
we
can only
could,
do it
we
after the
could
reservoir, they
put
can
up
only do
some
it?
signs here and there. Mike and them would know better where to put that sign. Do not
Well,
park.
and Mike,
Same way with Kevin.
Mike was involved, he was here when it was
Yes,
accessible in the past.
yes.
Any issues from water or sewer engineering?
No, Chris is right, there's nowhere to park on the road, you'd have to be back in there.
I talked to Mike, we're not gonna do any repairs to the road. The road's gonna be what it is. I know we have to do some after last Saturday night's rain washout, but we're not gonna go out, we used to go out every year and make that road perfect for them. No.
Bill, any issues from your end?
No, I think it's an excellent idea. I was just wondering about turkey hunting, grouse hunting.
We're gonna
This
start-
all of a sudden got
we're gonna start-
personal.
Archery starts in what, 3 weeks?
That's under personal things.
Archery starts in 3 weeks, but I'd just like to see this open up. Let's see what happens. See if the trash is kept down, because it did get trashed there towards the end.
Is there any intention to publicize that at all? Or, I think if we do, that we reinforce that this is kind of a trial, that this is something that we need to keep parking at bay, and we need to keep impact on land at bay, and especially, trash. If people are going to, whatever the trash is, clean up after yourselves, because if it's not going to be an option in the future. So I don't know that we want to publicize it, but if we do, I think those components need to be included.
We probably should, to let people know. I do know that Mike and them, I know we had a sign up years ago, and Mike doesn't know if there's any around or not, but he can get with Chris and do this. It's open from sunrise to dusk, and then the gate's locked. One of our employees go out and lock the gate. Sorry if you're not out, I mean, they've had to go back out and unlock the gate. And let
And
a few
at this
people
point,
out.
there's no ATV access.
No.
There's no wellhead concern. That's been a recurring theme for any access out there. There's no wellhead impact. Any further discussion? We have a motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Crawford.
Rick, can I make a comment there?
Mr.
You
Brooks.
hit something that's pretty important, because Mike's even brought this up, and I've seen it, There's a group at the far western end of that, that ride their four-wheelers down the whole way in front of the watershed, and then they'll get off and they actually drive the woods back to their hunting lands. There's a cabin, or, a hunting club back there plus private property. So if you are gonna open it, you should make people aware to keep vigilant of that, because I know, we've not wanted it to happen, but it does happen. I saw it. So they do come in from the western end, set up, and then they drive all that wood, all our property out to theirs.
On four-wheelers.
They won't use the four-wheelers for driving, but to get in from the western end, they'll ride them in.
Okay. I don't know where all the lines, I've been up there, it's been a while, but I don't know where all the lines are up there either. So,
Yeah.
there's a gate up off Pine Hill. The big rock's still up there, you can't get through the whole way, correct?
Right, now you can't drive it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Cropfarmel to open the watershed property for the first 3 days of buck season and both the first and last Saturday of buck season, total of 5 days from dawn to dusk for hunter access with some parking restrictions and some requests that the land be respected
For 2017, right?
for 27 days only. So
At this point.
At this point, if it works out, then we can look at it, and if there was any turkey hunters, we might take care of them.
motion, your second still.
Let's see what it is.
Yeah.
All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other new business? Any public comment from the floor? We might make 2 hours. Mr. Grogan.
Last month, I didn't mean to blindside you, especially the borough manager, when I was asking about the disconnects. But what is the status about the emergency generators for the wells? What are we doing, or are we doing anything?
So,
Mr.
well,
Radowski.
part of the grant was a new generator at well 4, and well 4's, that service actually serves the mixed building and well 1 altogether. So that'll be covered. The new service that will be going up on the mountain will power, there'll be a generator out there that will power everything on the mountain, which will be wells 5 and new well number 6. That's what's in the mix at this point. There is, to my knowledge, no intent to put a generator at well 2, which is the only other one. So,
Well, what about the other wells that DEP dictated to us 10 years ago, we had to have generator hookup? That's what we were working on, I thought.
well, that's well 4 and
Up on the hill.
4 and 1, yeah, that's well 4 and 1. So that actually, that's the community
Now, we
development
got
block
a grant all of a sudden for that, and
Yes, that was part of the grant.
Not all of a sudden, we've had the grant for 3 years already.
Haven't done
And
anything.
here's the issue, we were tracking those, they were running separately. So the disconnects were as old as 2014.
they were bought 3 years ago by somebody.
I don't know, that might be true, but that's when it actually was identified originally. In the interim period between now and then, we have since gotten that grant to do that work, so.
Well, like the generator sitting over there was worked on by Dan Rapp to set up so we had 60 amps of power off that generator, and then all the outlets for all these different buildings are laying over there that were bought back when Dan Rapp was here. So that stuff's laying there.
Well, I know, like, there's a 60 amp connection on the well, it would be the disinfection building, which serves well number 5.
Right.
Out
Over on
out-
1-3.
Oh,
Goose Pond.
Yep, correct. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we
We
just
just
put that
did
in.
that.
So, okay.
But it's not complete, because there's still parts of it
They haven't ordered yet.
that are.
Well, I think that would make sense why it was put on hold, because that grant came through and that there's gonna be a real generator up there.
So all that money was spent and time was
So
spent.
we ordered parts for that before, when we reviewed the DEP
Correct.
2014
Correct.
is when we ordered those, so.
They were just never put in. And we then subsequently got the $1 million to do the grant work, so.
No, I mean, we ordered stuff this year when we reviewed that, when we found that 2014 DEP.
Because we continued to go down that road of
Right.
trying to, we wanted to comply.
So
with-
that's the stuff they were putting in.
So,
That's
Right.
why the
temporary
budget-
stuff, yeah.
Okay, so we don't have to do any of that.
The answer is yes.
We gotta put the temporary shit in.
We were attempting to be able to tell DEP, yes, we met the 2014, and at the time, we were not tracking to meet that with respect to the grant with all this other stuff that's going on.
Right.
I think at this point, the reality is next year, we'll be doing that work. And if DEP comes in and gets us, if you will, for that particular item, we can say that that's already well down the road of being addressed. So,
Okay.
so we now have the funding to address it. I don't want to say the right way, but a more permanent solution.
Right. Standalone generators, transfer
Yeah.
switches, a whole bit.
Exactly.
Okay, so what I'm asking is, we don't need to do anything else like we did over in Goose Pond. I mean, up on top of the hill, we ordered, we supposedly.
That's what that
We
transfer
laid that,
switch was
yeah.
for.
we got a transfer switch
Yeah.
for like nothing, basically, and parts and pieces to put that in, so we would be DEP compliant. Now,
Correct.
are we to do that, or are we not to do that?
I don't want to give that answer right now, Mike, but I will get that for you. I don't think I'm authorized to give you that answer. That's why I want to talk to Chris first.
Well, and somebody ought to tell us whether we're supposed to go ahead with that or not go
Totally
ahead with
agree.
it. It
Totally
almost
agree.
seems like we're doing something that you're gonna tear out within 6-8 months. I'm not into that.
Totally agree.
DEP compliant or not. That
Agreed.
is
Agreed.
stupid.
Yep.
And we can tell DEP that. I'll tell them that. And if we already have the grant and we're gonna do the standalone generators, they should just like, that's why I'm not up there.
Understood. I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
If you heard earlier, we're really trying to tread lightly, I think, what Greg's doing.
I know, I heard that.
Well, but, you know, I mean,
But-
We won't be sending you as our representative.
No, but it's,
I'll look normal.
And then, like I said, this goes back to Dan Rapp's day, and this was not a major issue. I mean, we put that one in there at the Goose Pond in, like 4 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
We had that done. So, and cost-wise, the interlock piece, which hasn't been received yet, is the most expensive part. And that whole project was done for less than $600. So I'm having a real difficult time knowing that there's equipment laying over there on the floor and back in the corner and all this that's been bought and piled up for nothing. And some of it's been bought recently. There's 3 stainless steel disconnects. They're Eaton's, and I priced them out. They're minimum, they're $2,000 a piece. They're stainless steel 3R. So you've got 10, 15 grand laying over there. Just,
What are we gonna do with it?
yeah. And there's no use for those disconnects.
No.
There's absolutely none, not electric.
So I've never seen the pile. Let's get together. We'll go through the pile and see what we're going to use, what we're not going to use, and if it's going to be resold, revalued, whatever. It'd be my recommendation to do exactly that. So
I think timing has been the thing here is, there was limited activity over time, the last couple of years, to correct some of these issues. We started to buy some supplies to correct some of these issues. We have a grant, we've got distraction with, sewer issues and other water issues, and, DEP is not the most friendly with us right now.
Well, we could make them friendly. That's why I'm disturbed about this.
I don't know that we can right now.
Well, see, that part, like if you keep saying that we're gonna do stuff, but then we run into the same problem where it gets postponed or puts in the back burner and we don't get it done, then DEP is going to. That's, if anything else, we've pleaded, we tried to get the sewer authority to be an active authority so we could eliminate a lot of this miscommunication. That's what I'm gonna call it, is lack of communication. Just like with Chris in my driveway, why didn't you call me? That took 3.5 months, 4 months to take care of a simple situation. This is what's going on. This is what's going to kill all this new work we've done. You spend $3 million on upgrading this equipment, you're going to be right back to where you started because of lack of communication. Nobody wants to talk. You don't like me because I tell you what I think, it don't matter. But if we don't discuss these situations and resolve them, which we can, we have talent right here in town to resolve this stuff.
I think we've made a lot of headway in the last 2 years to resolve a lot of this stuff. We're not there yet, and I don't think anyone at this table is asserting that we are. But we're making headway, and we're trying to coordinate an awful lot of things right now between DEP on the water side, DEP on the sewer side, you know, keeping the borough running otherwise. And I can't answer what parts are there, how they were bought, when they were bought, where they were bought, what was paid for them. You know, I do know that we've got $900 and some thousand to do a major water system project finally. And there are requirements in there, and I don't think anyone, Mike just said it, I think anyone wants you guys to spend hours doing work if it's gonna be torn out and replaced. So we're trying to tread lightly with that, we're trying to fulfill the grant timeline, we just got an extension on that to fulfill the work. And there's a lot of things at play right now. So, I mean, you were all over the place with your statement just a second ago, and I don't know what your specific question is.
I'd just like to see us start talking a little bit, you know?
Here we are.
So there's a little bit more communication, particularly on deals like with this emergency generator. Because, you know, like Mike said, you know, it's one thing to do work to get tore out, but it's also do work for something that you want to sell or something like that too. I don't want to do any more work if we're going to be selling stuff.
Look,
So, you know, that's my biggest thing.
I can't sit here and tell you we are or are not going to sell anything, you know, so, you know, conditions change and situations change and certainly finances change. The generator we talked about earlier was for ideally this building and the 2 municipal buildings, that's grant funded. We're working on RFP, actually the RFP's done, to be advertised to start moving forward with that, to have it installed here. I don't know if that would be enough to cover the well over here, but ideally it's for IT and backup for our emergency operations
That we
center.
just gotta do some measurements on, we'll come up with a good plan on that. We've already discussed on that. That IT is completely separate though from the wells and
Right.
all that. You know, that's just your 3 buildings right here. You know,
Right.
That's an easy fix. Matter of fact, you'll probably have plenty of money to take care of your other ends, you know. You can get a generator in here and stuff like that. You could probably put one in for $3,000 to $5,000. So, you know, the generator part ain't gonna be a big deal. And so that's just one issue, you know, I'm going back about the wells, you know, like I said, that goes back to Dan Rapp's day.
I can't speak for
And the
Dan
equipment
Rapp.
still lays over there that he bought.
There's been a lot of transition in this borough since Dan Rapp was here.
No doubt about that.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, it is what it is. And I think the grant process is a big piece of that. And, you know, I think Greg gave you an appropriate answer, and he'll gladly talk to you, and you can go through the pile and, you know, answer any of those specific questions. If you have specific questions that I can get an answer for, I'll give you an answer if we don't have it readily. The communication piece, you know, we're not 100%, and I don't claim that anyone at this table is 100%, but I think we're trying, and I think we're doing better today than we were 365 days ago or 780 days ago. 830 days ago. Anything,
No, we'll be with Greg, we'll definitely, yeah.
any other public comment?
Elm Street.
Elm
What
Street.
are we doing Elm Street? I know we're getting into hurricane season.
Motion to adjourn.
You can't get in the manhole.
Why? Full of water.
Yeah. Every time we go down to do some work down
We
there,
could
it's
have
got
done it 3
water.
months ago.
worn in.
Well, that won't be fixed till next spring.
I think we've had an unusually wet summer as well. I mean, you know, you can only love Mother Nature so much.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Epley is second by Mr. Crawford. We'll adjourn. Our next regular Borough Council meeting is Tuesday, September 19th, 2017, at 7 p.m. We hope to see everybody.
I need you.
All those in favor, give your consent by saying aye. Any opposed?